I have a few quick questions.
Rapid fire round.
Yeah, let's fire them off. So, what is the best retirement age?
32.
Okay, favorite podcast?
Secretly Incredibly Fascinating with Alex Schmidt.
Oh, yeah, I'm interested in that.
It's about inane topics. I love getting out of my car and saying, yeah, I was just listening to a podcast about mustard. People are like,
I love it.
Yeah.
Favorite book?
Man, I am such a bad reader.
Okay.
I think that's my answer.
Nutrition facts?
I've been intermittent fasting for years, and it's done good for me.
Okay.
But you got to find what works for your lifestyle.
Favorite book is Nutrition Facts.
Oh.
I know you're into.
I thought that was the next question.
I know you're into eating healthy. Stocks or crypto, and why is it crypto?
Ooh. I might go stocks because currently I think crypto is still too volatile, but I think eventually it will be crypto.
Okay. Airbnb or rental?
Rental, less work.
All right.
And it's still a lot of work, but it's less work.
Love it. Great way to get started.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's up, everybody? Today we have Stephen Laughrun, who didn't go to college and has 2 houses now at 26 years old.
Yeah.
What's up, Stephen?
Oh, not much, just working and keeping things going.
Thanks for making it out today.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna pop
course.
this open. It's gonna make some sound for all the ASMR freaks out there. So let's just talk a little bit of background about like the kind of work that you do.
Sure.
So you and I actually met at work?
Yeah, we met on a set it was a UT student project, but it had a big enough budget that they brought me in as like a real working person to be in charge of the grips. I am a grip and dolly grip here in Austin, Texas. I worked on Fear the Walking Dead the last 2 seasons, and now I'm back in commercial world, and we'll see what comes. But yeah, at the time I was doing more indie features and more independent movies, and
so
you were going to school for that, and
yeah,
I told you to drop out.
You did, and I kind of did temporarily. It was more of it was like a career, definitely a career decision. For like a year of just working, and then taking one class 2 years later. What age did you start working?
I went to a 9-month program for film right out of high school. So I was 18, not even and a half. I did 9 months of just making movies, putting your head down and figuring all these pieces out. And then I moved here when I was 19 and started working.
That's, so you were not working for a year out of high school. What did you work through that time?
I didn't have a job, but we were constantly at the school, at a set, doing different projects, and I didn't have any free time.
How much did you know about filmmaking, and how many usable work skills did you have in film before going to that program?
So I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was in high school, and I kind of was freaking out about it. I was good at school growing up, and then I just had this thing a couple years in high school where I was I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to be crunching numbers or doing math or going to some job. And all of these skills we're learning are very, engineering and very physics, and you just sit there and do math all day. And I was not about it. The one class I liked was photography. And the only hobby I really had was watching movies. And I was watching probably 5-6 movies a week, and then sleeping all day during school so I could go home and watch TV and movies. And that led to, in my senior year, sort of deciding I'm gonna make movies. And I started YouTube University, started looking at things online, and started making projects for a lot of my friends. We've gotta make a video for this class. And I was like, I'm in charge, I'm making this. So I had this sort of understanding of what the language of film could be and what I wanted out of it, but I didn't know how to achieve it.
You knew what the end product should be.
Yeah, exactly. I knew that when I was watching Taxi Driver and they dolly off of him having a phone call to an empty hallway, and you just feel bad.
Yeah.
And he's having this phone call that's so sad and desperate. And you're looking down an empty, it just, you feel it. You feel it all there. And so I knew that that's what I wanted to do, is be able to understand what's going on and achieve it. So then going to this program, they have all the toys, they have all the pieces. And they say, okay, well, this is how you make that move happen. This is how you light it in such a way. And this is what it's like to work this much to make a movie. Because
we watch a lot of the like behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, as much as I could. I had a little collection of DVDs that had some pretty solid stuff, but even then, I didn't really have a concept of what any of the pieces were. Mm-hmm. I had spent most of my time on YouTube universities, like make your track out of PVC pipe and make your thing out of garbage, and it'll cost you $45. And I did it. I was spending $100 on something that should cost $100,000.
Yeah.
And trying to make it work. And so I just had no concept of what the real toys looked like, which for me, as someone who thinks about movies so much and works in that space so much, every time I step up a level in a job, because I'm just like so focused on the movie, seeing all the new toys, it's like, oh, this is how they do that. This is why it all comes together that way. And
right. There's definitely like cheaper ways of doing things, but the problem is often that it's just like not safe.
Or it's difficult.
Yeah.
Or it can do it if you take all day to get it just right. Whereas you get the big toy, you get the real one.
It's like made for that.
You knock it out in 5 minutes. You have a technician who's only does that. You have the piece of gear that is fine-tuned to do only that. It's been well maintained, it's brought in, and there's someone in charge of a schedule, and it all happens much more efficiently than me and my PVC trying to like, okay, that didn't work. I gotta hold it this way and come around. And then if I do this too much, it's not gonna work anymore. So we have to lose that part of our shot. So the ideas are able to flow more freely when you have the right toys, but it's still achievable on a budget.
Well, narrative film is like super fun, and I do miss it a lot of times, but there's like a reason I stepped out of it. And that was part of the reason was that it's hard to get like a loan or any sort of loan with like if you're freelancing, because banks kind of don't
they don't like the paperwork of a freelance filmmaker.
Yeah, I guess so. A lot of it is also like you gotta make sure you're on top of a lot of things on your own, because it's not like you're getting money constantly pulled out for taxes out of your paycheck and stuff. So then at the end of the year, it's like whatever you write off, it like takes away from your overall income, and whatever's left, that's what they consider as like your income, where really it's like everybody has expenses all year that they write off. But
you get stuck between this rock and this hard place where you can pay a ton in taxes because you're paying what you owe, or you can pay less in taxes by writing things off, but your qualifiable income goes so far down that you can't afford a loan. You can't get a house. And it's very difficult. And just getting either of those solutions to happen efficiently and easily is a job in and of itself. And it's such a pain to keep track of all your receipts, all your W-9s, all your forms, and walk into somewhere with a tax person who's used to some 23-year-old who's got a job and comes in, he's got his one W-2, and he goes, I don't know what to do with this. And they go, you get $500 back. Then I come in with 75 W-9s and 8 W-2s and $30,000 in expenses. It was just a stack of receipts. They're like, oh man, okay, I wasn't ready for that. It's hard to not have a tax guy. And then that gets more expensive if you have a tax guy.
For sure. It's all those extra expenses. So I stepped away to like be able to get around that. And like you said, like if I like literally the moment I showed up with a W-2, it was like we can now afford like 3 times as much house.
Yeah, exactly.
It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
It wasn't like too much of a difference in income. It was literally just the fact that it was a W-2.
Exactly. And that's the hard, especially when you switch from taxes to getting a loan. When lenders see, oh, you worked 3 days here, 5 days here, a week here, 1 day, 1 day, 1 day, they don't believe that you're ever going to work again. They have no reason to. For all they know, you got fired off all those jobs and nobody likes you and you're never going to work again. When you come with a W-2 job, that has a sense of security, a sense of this is going to last forever, and they'll always be able to pay their mortgage, which is interesting because that's not always true. Like,
right.
For my first property, I was freelance, and it was hard. It was hard. I had just stacks and stacks. It took probably 4 months back and forth with the lender of, okay, well, I need this statement and this, the number of this income from this source, and any extraneous sources need to be compiled in such a way that we can understand it in our system. And it took forever. And I still ended up having to get a cosigner, which...
Right, and that's the main reason that they were like okay with it, right?
Yeah, that was the tipping point. It was finally like, it's not gonna happen. But with the second property, making exactly the same amount of money, I was on Fear the Walking Dead, it's shot for a year straight, this W-2. And even though I knew, as I'm applying for my second loan, that I only have 4 months left on this job.
Right.
The lender sees a W-2 with 6 months that I've been on one job. They
right.
go, oh yeah, he'll be on it for the rest of his life.
Right.
But the show left town. But they don't know that. I already had the loan. I already bought the house.
Now?
Huh?
It's in Atlanta?
Yeah,
now?
it's in Savannah. Yeah, I moved to Georgia.
Oh, okay. Dope.
Yeah, they're trying to bring some people.
But...
Well, they're trying to bring some people out, but I just kind of don't want to go back to that show for
that's fair.
All kinds of reasons.
Okay. Maybe we can get into that eventually.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're like our group of like G&E people, of, like grips, lighting people in film. Like, I don't know. I feel like you just kind of came out of nowhere with that. So I feel like we were like, whoa, that's awesome.
It was something I was working on in the background for years.
You had asked me to like help you move, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'll help you move. And then like day of, it's like, oh, I think we're moving to a house. I think this is Steven's house.
Yep.
That was dope.
Yeah. And then the second one, people were like, wait, you did it again?
Yeah. Yeah. That was really cool.
Yeah. It felt like that for a lot of people. I noticed because everyone was surprised, but well,
because of the same thing that a lot of people in film aren't.
They know how hard it is.
Yeah, so you said you worked on it for years?
Years of like planning and thinking.
So how did you get your first house as like mostly freelance income?
Well, like we said, the biggest factor, which I'm very fortunate to have had, was a cosigner. It doesn't cost the cosigner anything if you always pay your loan. Mm-hmm. You're not taking money from anybody. There's some people that feel like a cosigner is a handout, and it's really not unless you default on your loan, in which case. Mm-hmm. The cosigner is going to have a hard time. But if you know that your freelance income can cover this mortgage comfortably, all you're getting from a cosigner is someone who has stable income to say yes, they will pay. But not everyone can have that, and that's hard to find. That's probably the most fortunate thing that I had going for me.
And they don't have any. Your cosigner doesn't have any ownership.
Well, they do technically on paper.
Okay.
The way they have to own at least 1% of the property as the cosigner. So when I did it, it was my dad that cosigned for me.
Yeah, it has to be someone you trust.
Yeah. And vice versa. The cosigner's not going to cosign. I couldn't get someone off of Craigslist to cosign for me.
Right.
And there's no chance that I come up. At the time I was 23. Like, yeah, I can afford this.
That's so dope.
Yeah. Who's going to believe you?
Right.
That's the hardest part, is finding someone who will believe you and has the income to then afford the cosign, because they still have to prove their income will cover it, assuming you don't. So you get, once you are cosigned, I set mine up so it was 99% of the loan, of the ownership was mine, and 1% belonged to my dad, which meant every bill went to both of us, every update, every little thing went to both of us. But he would just throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
I would do it all. And then when I got to a point that I'd lived in the house long enough to sort of prove that I was a resident there, I was able to refinance and take him off of it and get 100% in my name.
Oh, what? Dope.
Yeah.
I didn't know you did that.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. That was sort of in tandem with getting the second property.
How long did it take between when you bought to when you refinanced?
Most people wait a year to sort of establish residency, because when you buy a property, you kind of have to declare what you're going to be using it as, and that affects the amount of down payment you can make.
Right. If it's your primary residence, if you're going to be living in it,
it can be much lower down payment, which is great for a first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
So I most people do about a year. I had a weird thing where the person who sold me the house was not a U.S. citizen, so that meant any money I gave them was leaving the country. And there's a program called FERPTA, and I don't fully understand all the ins and outs of it, so if you want the details, someone should look it up. But the long and short that I understood was I cannot change this loan for 2 years, or I will have to pay an international tax of like $300,000.
Okay.
Which was almost twice what I paid for the house.
I was gonna say, I think that was more than the house.
Yeah, it was almost twice what I paid for the house. So
it's a nice house, by the way. It was like a pretty new build.
Yeah, it was a 2006 build in a neighborhood similar to this that was going up kind of outside of Austin, but close enough you can get there.
It was 2006, so it was like maybe...
I think it was like 12 years old at the time I bought it.
Yeah, like 12 years old.
Yeah.
And you said like 3-bedroom?
Yeah, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths.
That's awesome.
2-car garage. Yeah. Little yard, and in a nice neighborhood right by a school. So
yeah. But it was like
150. 187. 187 in 2019.
Yeah, in 2019.
Yeah.
Just literally 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And that is about like 30 minutes from downtown Austin.
Not even. Like 25? Just slightly under. Yeah.
Like 25
You can
minutes.
get into Austin very easily.
And since 2019, well, I know that last year, so year to year from like January last year to January this year is like a 30% increase in the market.
It was like a 50% increase where I was.
Yeah, I was going to say, it depends on like where you are.
Yeah.
And like that particular town is like blowing up.
Yeah. So, well, since 2019.
Well, I mean, everywhere in Austin, pretty much. But.
Since 2019, I think like something like 1,200 apartment units have gone up in Manor. Manor's the town that I bought the first house in. I think 1,200 apartment units have gone up. The neighborhood has extended by 400 units of residential housing. And there's 2 more neighborhood developments in the works, along with there's a Starbucks, there's a new restaurant, they updated the gas stations, everything's it's trying to become the next suburb.
Yeah, I mean, it's still kind of a lot of room to go, because last time I went there, it was still like there's a Walmart.
Yes,
that's like the main grocery
there's
store.
No grocery store. I think that should be their next project.
And that was kind of, I mean, that's. So here in Kyle is like way better as far as like the amount of like options. So we have like a Target and H-E-B and like we have a Walmart also.
Yes.
So like I think Manor has a lot of room to grow. So that's really dope. And you still own it.
Yes, I do. I moved into a house in Austin, but kept the one in Manor and rented it out to a family, which is really cool.
And like how much percent wise do you think it is over like what your mortgage is?
It is it's about 25% over what my mortgage is.
Dope.
And
you've only had the house for 3 years.
Yeah. The refinance helped a lot. Refinancing, I was able to lower the payment just a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this will like keep going, but that was like just awesome timing.
Yeah, it really was. It really was, because I was able to lock in the refinance at 1.5% lower than my original loan. Mm-hmm. And then right after I locked it in and locked in the second property, rates started going up, and what's happening now started happening. So I was just above the bottom of the interest rates.
Dope.
If I had timed it a little better, I could have probably hit the perfect interest rate, but I did pretty good.
Gotcha. And that's why you were able to lower your payments?
Exactly.
Because of the lower interest rate?
Yes, the interest rate was lower. It would have been much lower, but because the property taxes went up so much, it only went down, I think it went down 30% from the original loan amount, or monthly payment amount.
What kind of refinance? Did you use the refinance to then fund the next property, or how did you?
No, I did not do that this time. I wanted to try and keep this payment lower because I knew the rent out in Manor is still lower than it is here. and I wanted to make sure I had that 25% over to cover the expenses of because even they've been in the tenants have been in about 9 months, and I'm probably breaking even with just the little things that happen when someone lives in your house and the garage is broken. Okay, well, I'll get that fixed. The screen door is broken. Well, that's on me too. Okay, gotcha. I'll fix that. And
so even with 25%, you feel like you're breaking even.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Right. Yeah. Because even the months where there's no calls from them, which is great, I'm taking that 25% and I'm putting it away because I know someday something's going to happen. The AC is going to go out, and that's going to be $10,000, and that's not going to be covered by 1 month's 25% over.
Right.
The mortgage. So having a separate sort of savings that the house is saving for itself is very important in this scenario.
Gotcha. Okay. That's dope that you pull some aside just for those fixes.
Yeah.
I'm sure that like the real actual income from renting won't come for like maybe another few years.
Yeah.
Like I know, for example, I think my dad's house payments were something like $800 or something, and at the time when they got the house, they thought it was like really expensive.
Right.
But now it's it's not.
No. Yeah. Now.
So it's like I'm sure with inflation and everything, maybe eventually it'll feel like your payments are like really cheap.
And that's one of the benefits I see in real estate over some other forms of investment and income is that if you've locked in a rate, if you've locked in a payment, that payment will stay the same regardless of inflation. So, people try to hedge against inflation with cryptocurrency, which I do as well. But real estate functions so strongly as a hedge against inflation. As long as you know you can make the payment, should the market go down, it's a very safe way to do so. Because if the market goes down and you can still make the payment, you'll survive. You'll weather the storm, hold on to it. The market will recover. Historically, the market has always recovered eventually. So if you can hold out through whatever down cycles happen, when it goes up, all of a sudden, the value of the cost that you're paying goes down. So if you're paying, just as an easy math number, if you're paying $1,000 a month for your principal, your interest, your taxes, your insurance, for all of your monthly payments on this house, and there's 6% inflation, you're still paying $1,000, but that $1,000 is now worth $910 or whatever the math adds up to. Right. So it feels like $910 now, even though you're still paying $1,000, and that continues every year as it goes. And when you lock it in for 30 years, that's plenty of room for inflation.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it keeps going for the next 30 years, but like you said, it's definitely going to keep going up, like without a doubt.
Yeah. The American economy has plenty of faults, but one thing that it is going to do is keep marginally inflating. It's regulated in such a way and managed in such a way that
it's like supposed to.
Yeah, it's supposed to. And there are so many entities in place to keep that happening. It'll happen. And sometimes that means the economy will go down. But those things work together to create a general upward trend. I think, is the way I understand it.
I agree.
And it's very interesting to watch things like this happen, because for years, the first few years I was doing this when I was trying to figure out how to buy a house, because it was the only thing I was comfortable investing in. That's how I discovered all this. It was like, oh, these things all work together, even though, you can buy a stock and you can say, this is an asset that I own and it'll increase and decrease in value. It might pay me a dividend. There's all kinds of reasons to invest in a stock, but that was at the time something I just could not wrap my brain around. Right. And could not figure out why I would do that.
Right, but something physical like a house.
Something physical like a house.
Everybody understands that this has value.
Yes.
It's like this is a place that you can you can use land for so many different things.
Well, even if you don't own a house, you still live somewhere. Yeah. and a lot of people are paying to live wherever they're living. You have to live somewhere.
That money's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah. And
so might as well go to something that you're
exactly. Might as well go into an asset rather than an apartment building.
Right.
If you're trying to grow your wealth in that way.
Right. But at least at first, it did help us a lot in like raising money.
Yeah.
To be able to like rent for like cheaper than a mortgage would be.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like we saw that our rental would be the same price as a mortgage that we're like, let's look into this house thing. Like, I think it's about time. We're like
that. I had a very similar way in, because I had a roommate in a 2-bedroom apartment. We were paying $1,200 a month, I think, in South Austin. So this was years ago. Can't do that anymore.
Right. Yeah. I was paying like something like $475 at first. At one point at University Estates and on Riverside, and it's like, you can't do that on Riverside.
Can't do that anymore. But that $1,200 a month got us I think it was 900 square foot 2-bedroom apartment. But if you got a 3-bedroom, 1,700 square foot house in Manor for $187,000, the principal and interest cost is $800. So it was already less. Obviously, you still have to pay taxes and insurance, so your monthly payment is still going to be more than the $1,200, but not much more.
Right.
And you have one more bedroom.
Yeah.
800 more square feet.
More space, a backyard. You got a driveway. Nobody's bothering you.
Exactly. And so if you can buy the place and rent the rooms to people, house hacking, a very good solid way that people have talked about to no end about
house hacking.
Where you rent a room
that's not yours, though.
Yeah. Well, it can be either way.
Oh, okay.
Some people talk about house hacking like buying a duplex, living in one side and renting the other for enough to cover the entire mortgage.
But you can do that with the room, which is what
exactly. So if I got now a 3-bedroom, I can have 1 bedroom for myself. We have the common area. We have a 2nd bedroom that functions as an office for everyone involved, and you can rent the 3rd bedroom and cover enough of your monthly payment that now you're paying the same as what you were at your apartment. And that's exactly what I did, and it's been great.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest barrier then, like if you know you're going to be spending the same amount like per month, the biggest barrier is like raising up for that down payment.
Exactly.
What did you do? Like, when did you know you had to start raising for a down payment, or like were you just saving money and you didn't know, or like what did you do? Did you like cut your costs, or?
I had no costs left to cut, but that's because I started working when I was 19. I was straight out of my weird little school. And then I moved to a new city.
Drop out of college and just start working.
Just start working, because when I first moved here, my monthly payment for my apartment was $550 plus utilities, and I was making maybe $700 a month. At the time, my percentage of savings was 0 because I was scraping by.
Oh, gotcha.
But that created a lifestyle that I was able to maintain as I made more money. I left my job at Jimmy John's. Well, I think I was fired. But left my job at Jimmy John's.
Okay, we don't have to get into why.
And started. Well, it's because I was working on more movies.
Oh, okay.
Because I was able to like build up enough skills that I could.
You're like,
I could do this. Yeah, I could do this, and I could work for $100 a day now, which is still not enough for what I was doing. But $100 a day, 5 days a week, you come out with about $40,000 a year, which is, for a 19-year-old single guy, is a comfortable income.
Yeah.
But making that more comfortable income, I continued to live as if I was making much less.
Right.
And so that all just started going to a savings account. And then one day I looked at it, and I'm still here sitting there thinking I'm broke. I don't have any money. Then I look at my bank account, and there was $12,000 in it. It's like, oh.
You kept like your expenses the same as when you were working
I kept my expenses exactly the same. I developed hobbies that were free really or super cheap.
Honestly.
Yeah. That's the thing I've been the worst at since my income's increased.
Yeah.
In the more recent years, because I've definitely caved to more lifestyle inflation since then.
Same. To be honest, like a lot of it is just like are things that I always like. I'm gonna do this. Like this is good for me. Like for example, like even a gym membership.
Right.
It's like I know that. Like if I have this better gym, I'm more likely to go more often. Right. Whereas if I keep paying $10 at like Planet Fitness, like I don't feel like going because there's not like a huge amount of pressure from losing $10.
Yeah.
But
the quality, the value you're getting is relatively equivalent to the more you're paying. So you are getting a better gym, I assume.
Right. Oh yeah, it's a way better.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely I've been spending more the more income I'm making, and that's like one of the main things that we're trying to cut down on. But then also getting a house, like we are at like a healthy percentage of like how much we're spending on the payments, but at the same time, it's a bigger percentage than what we were doing before.
Right.
Than what we were spending on like housing.
Right.
So that's kind of like gone into how much like our overall savings are, because all our other spending stayed pretty much the same.
Right.
But yeah. So how? So you're at 12K and you're 20.
Barely. I realized that, right as I was turning 20. That led to one of my actually probably greatest career mistakes, is I left town for 3 months to go work at a camp from my childhood.
Just for fun?
Yeah, it was a milestone thing. I had been a camper there for X amount of years, and then I volunteered there. And when you're 20, you're old enough to apply for a job, not just volunteer. And I'd always volunteered, and I was really good at being at that camp. Then I got the job, the paying job.
Yeah.
But the paying job was not very much, because it was designed for someone who's 20 who's like in college, so they're off for the year. They don't have a housing bill anymore. They don't have, it's summer vacation. They're not going to be spending money anyway. They're going to go home and hang out with their mom or whatever.
Right.
I still had to pay for my apartment. So for me, I actually came out at a net loss after getting paid at that job. And something I didn't realize at the time is my foot was not as deep in the door in the industry as I thought it was. So I kind of had to restart my career. And so I burned down almost half of that savings.
Because you turned jobs down.
Yeah, I had left town. I wasn't there anymore. So people forgot about me. And more people came to town and took the spots that I was going to have. So
in summer, like as brutal as the heat is, like a lot of stuff shoots.
Yeah.
In the summer.
Yeah. So a lot of the guys that came in and replaced me at the time are very good friends of mine now, because we've kind of paralleled our careers. Right. Since. So it worked out in the end, but that definitely burned down a lot of that savings. So I had to continue that sort of lifestyle until I then did it again, where I got my foot back in the door, started making more money, and then, now I have a big savings.
And then moving from that first house over to the second house, like what did you do? Like what was the gap in between that time, and like what did you do to be able to move from having that first house to the second one? Like
it was a combination of continuing this fight against lifestyle inflation, continuing to try and keep your expenses low, and making the current house worth more.
Like what kind of things made your house like worth more? Is like you did the kitchen and like I think the restroom?
I did a lot of things in that house, and so that was another reason I had leaned towards real estate over stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and all those other things. Is I knew if you buy a house for $187,000 in Manor, that's probably less than what it's worth already. And then you put a new floor in. A new floor costs between $4,000 and $10,000, but increases the value of your property by maybe 40. And so that's a pretty substantial gain.
From like what floor to what floor? And like, did you know that ahead of time?
Yeah.
Like when you were doing it, you knew like this. If I put this kind of floor, what did you put? Like actual like tile?
No, it's vinyl plank. It's very similar to what you have here, and it's part of the issue with this idea, because it is a strong idea. But part of the issue with it is that a lot of the value comes from trends. So the floor in the house was fine, but it was it looked like a 2006 laminated wood floor. Right. There was nothing wrong with it. There was no damage. But taking out the 2006 floor and putting in a 2019 floor, now all of a sudden people will say, oh, this has been recently renovated. This is the new floor. This is what houses look like that are new. Right. And that increases the value.
It makes it look newer.
Yeah. In theory, you'd have to do that again and again and again, but...
So you changed the floor, and I think you changed the toilet.
Yeah, I changed out the toilets. I changed out the sink, basins. I replaced all of the faucets and fixtures. I replaced all the countertops.
Yeah, how much did you spend on everything?
Well, part of my strategy was instead of doing one big renovation, was on my weekends doing it myself over the course of the 2 years that I lived there. So I think my best guess is going to be a pretty wide estimate, but it was probably in the range of $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
But the value of the house currently is $289,000, $290,000.
Awesome. That's 100.
Yeah, that's
dope, dude.
And that's without getting it appraised. That's just what the estimates say based on what I've done. So if I were to get it appraised, it could be lower, but it's probably going to be higher because the way things are valued right now is above what they should be. Because
and people are paying. Are people still paying above? Pretty sure people are still paying above asking price.
They are.
I think maybe the market from like the reports I was getting like monthly, it was like in January, February, maybe everything kind of leveled off a little bit, but it's kind of heating back up.
Yeah.
Now that we're in springtime. Ish.
It's spring, and I read something. I didn't read it deep enough to explain it properly, but there's something happening with interest rates that cause people to then again
try to buy before the interest rates
right
go
now.
up.
Yeah.
Because I think,
there was an announcement that it would be raised, but they weren't actually raised.
That they're making an announcement in April.
Yeah.
So there's supposed to be an announcement in April where like they could, increase interest rates by like a quarter point or possibly more, but we'll see. And so because people know that interest rates are about to go up, they're like, we got to buy a house right now.
Everyone who's sitting on cash is trying to lock in that rate to do what we were talking about earlier and lock in that payment. Because if the rate goes up, that payment's going to be higher. So if they can get it lower, why not get it lower?
Yeah. So if anybody, it's probably pretty hard to buy a house within a month. So I don't know if anybody's going to be able to take care of that if they're thinking about
not that we know.
Right now.
They exist. That's sort of one of the struggles that we have in our current system is that right now people with money are being favored pretty heavily by these situations. Because if I heard that at 20, if I was 20 years old and I heard, they're about to increase interest rates a point or a quarter point and lock in your rates now, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have happened.
Well, I don't know. If you had like 15K, in 2000.
I had 15K, but I was making something like 40, and
it's like 2016.
On my taxes for those years, the first 3 years I did my taxes, all together, all 3 years put together, I made $30,000 on my taxes. Because I was working for $100 a day on a low budget thing. They don't have paperwork. They're not reporting it to the IRS. Right. And oftentimes you're making less than $600, so there's no need to report it.
Right.
So I didn't have the qualifying income. I didn't have the actual income.
Right.
And I did have the savings, but you
can have the down payment, but if you're going to then be broke and you have to pay.
That was 100% of my savings at the time.
Yeah.
So I couldn't have done it. But someone who's sitting on $200,000, that's 1% of their portfolio, and they say, things are about to get crazy. Let me buy something. Let me buy something over there where it's less expensive than where I live. And that's unfortunate. And I don't know how to fix it. But it's an unfortunate part of our,
I don't think
current
there's
system.
any fixing. It's just like a symptom of like, things are, everywhere it's going up, but in Austin especially, it's like one of the hotter markets just because, things are going well here. It's like, so it's like in a way, if you have land, like you benefit. If you don't, it's just like going to make it harder.
Yeah. It's hard to provide advice to people sometimes because I know that a lot of what I succeeded at was heavily based on the time that I did it.
Well, in a way, so like now, okay, so you bought a house, your second house you bought recently, like last
2021, yes, yeah,
last year, like that's recent. And how were you? So I know you said you cut down, and was there anything special about that purchase that you did? Because it's like it's from Pflugerville-ish.
Almost Pflugerville. It's still Austin.
Like it's basically like it's Austin proper.
That's kind of
that's so expensive.
That's kind of part of the solution to your question is no one saw it.
What do you mean no one saw it?
I don't know. No one was looking at it.
That's insane. Literally.
I was looking. So I spent probably.
Houses go on the market and like they're gone by the weekend.
Yes. I don't know what happened specifically.
You don't.
What I know that I did was I was looking always. I had locked in my loan. I was pre-approved, whichever one is better than pre-qualified and pre-approved. I always get mixed up which is which, but whichever one is better, I was that. So I was ready to pull the trigger. And I was looking at houses, and I knew the market was super hot. I knew everything was going way over asking. So I'm looking at houses, and I'm putting in offers probably 30, 40,000 over asking, which is probably 10 to 20% for the range I was looking. And me and my realtor, we would walk into a house, and there was multiple times where we would walk in, we would look around, we would walk outside, and she's like doing the offer on the hood of her car. Oh. And we would send it and get a message back that says, this house is already pending on the market. Or off the market and pending.
Yeah, that happened to us quite a bit of
times. Someone had already bought it. And that's a house that popped up that day. Like I was at work and I saw it and I said, this one, tonight, this evening, let's go. Yeah. So it took a full month of that. After I was pre-approved, a full month of every day. That's a good realtor. Yeah, yeah. I was very lucky. She was working on fear. With me, so she
had the same availability.
Yes, as you did, exactly.
Which, for the most part, it's times when other people wouldn't want to be out.
Exactly. It was like a very and on top of that, we were at work together all day. Right. So it was like, hey, this one right here, let's check this out, and she would set it up, and I would do my thing. But it took fully a month of that, almost every day, one or two houses going away and not being able to get it. And then the house I got popped up in a neighborhood I hadn't been looking at, which was already sort of a green light for me. I was like, oh, I haven't been looking here. Means other people probably aren't looking here. And it was listed well below sort of the average of what was going on. I've seen a lot of 290, 300, 310. This was listed at 260. Right. And, you know, I hadn't been looking at the neighborhood. I didn't know if that neighborhood was worse. I wasn't sure. But the pictures were a little like, oh, there's a hole in the wall. That looks a little messed up. Okay, maybe it's more of a fixer than it lets on. So we talked about it, and I looked at the location closer, and I realized I really wanted that property. And we'd been missing on everything. So we, at work, shot an offer. We didn't go see it.
Oh. Okay, yeah. That's scary, but definitely, like you said, like in this, like the way that things had been, especially since 2020 to now, it's like you kind of have to act quickly.
Go. And so I think the property had been on the market for maybe 8 hours, and we sent an offer. It was 40,000 over asking. It was there was a waiver for the appraisal. There was a waiver for and inspect. There was all kinds of waivers that say,
like
these things will not.
This is what you have to do that for like anything that you're buying within the
nowadays. You do, yeah.
Sorry, Richard, like I've been telling us, and what we kept hearing from everyone else is like, pretty much everything was getting like you had to waive everything and just take the house as is. Yeah,
and it's scary because those are your security blankets.
Especially when you already know that there's like some cosmetic issues, so you don't know what's underneath.
Yeah, so it was scary, but I knew at that point that there were other ways out. Even though we waived our option, which is the easiest way out, there are other ways out. So I knew there were ways out if it all fell apart. But that was how we did it. We got it the next day, the next morning. They said, yeah, we want to sell it to you.
I don't know. I feel like that'd be like a red flag. It's like you're the first offer and they take it.
They told us they got 12 offers that day.
Okay, what?
And we were the best one by $400.
Okay. Yeah.
Like we were.
Did you choose like a weird number or was it?
Yeah, but it was a weird number. The $400 they were talking about was the appraisal waiver.
Oh.
Because it's factored in some way. But they was like, okay, well, we got it. Let's go look at it.
Yeah.
And we got in there, and it was pretty messed up. There were holes in the wall. Light fixtures didn't work.
I mean, as soon as you accept, like, if they accept, like, you still have like a good like month period of.
Yeah, you have 30 days of your closing. That is mostly the loan processors dealing with all of your nonsense and making all the numbers work.
So even if you lost like some money, you wouldn't lose. You wouldn't have to go through with the purchase.
Right.
If like something was wrong. So then, so the important thing was that like you just put out an offer because it was like below what the market price.
Yes.
And like you're pretty handy, so you know that like you should be able to fix some of the cosmetic things that you saw.
Exactly.
And like you put out the offers like on the day it came out, so that was like the importance of that.
That was the most important part is getting the offer in.
Yeah, and now you can go look at it and see like what's actually wrong.
Right, because at the time I was worried when we said we were going to waive the option, because the option is you have a 7-day option usually is what the normal agreement is, which means if they accept your offer, you have 7 days to look at it, bring in experts, do all this stuff, and you can bail for free. And I said, I don't need that. I don't need that week. You can still bail, but it'll cost you like $2,000.
Right.
Something like that, which is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of a house is not all that much.
Yeah, or buying something that's potentially already like $30K under like the market.
Exactly. If I lose that $2,000 and the next one I'm able to find $40,000 of hidden value in this house,
right,
that $2,000 is not a problem.
Right, if it works out.
If it works out. If it works
and
out.
It did.
It did. That was the most interesting thing, is getting into the house, because there were several things where it was like you would turn a light switch and nothing would happen, or one bulb would turn on in a fixture of 5, and to the average person that looks bad. That's like haunted house, like that's someone died here, there's cobwebs and the glass is broken, and that probably knocks like $1,000 off of the listing price per broken fixture, and every fixture was broken.
Okay.
So that, there's 10, 15 fixtures, that's $10,000 or $15,000 knocked off the list price. The wiring worked because one of the lights turned on. You can tell that it works, and all the hard stuff works. The thing that's broken is the fixture. Yeah. So I was able, that was a skin off my back. And when we finally closed and I got in there, I replaced all the fixtures for $1,000. And all of them work.
Nice.
And it's things like that where it looks so scary. Was
that the biggest thing?
That was the most scary looking thing.
Okay.
There's some other issues that I still have to address, but that was the highest value one, because that's the kind of thing that scares off people.
Right.
That's what you're looking for in these houses.
If you're gonna move in and you can't have lights on at night, it's like,
if you're
for like a week even,
right?
It's like,
or anything where you walk in and you go, ugh.
Yeah. It's also nice that like you're kind of moving in on your own.
Yeah.
It's not like, like I just feel like I wouldn't be able to do that with my partner. It's like, like I just wouldn't feel comfortable if we're both in that, like putting both of us in that space. Like if it's just like, if I'm only worried about myself, I feel like that's easier. I'm like, well, if anything happens, it's like, it's on me.
Yeah. Well, there's also a world where, like, as long as you've identified the problem correctly, that it's an easy problem to fix. I fixed all of that before I moved in. Like I closed on, let's say, the 20th for easy math. I moved in on the 27th. That week, I was still working, but I was able to get all of those fixes done because they're easy. Yeah. And that's what you have to look for. Is a problem is easy to fix, but is very, very ugly. Right. Just something that makes you go, oh, gross. Oh no. But is a simple fix. Even another one that we saw in this example, there were termites.
Okay, that's pretty bad.
It seems bad, and it can be.
Like how bad was it?
It wasn't bad at all. That's what you have to be able to learn and look for. This is my years of preparation that I was talking about.
When you walked it that first time, like you knew that there were termites, like you saw.
No, well, yes, there was a mud tube on the outside of the house, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a termite tube. And so I called my termite guy. And they came out and they said, yes, there's termites, but it's not bad. Okay. And they gave me a quote. This is before I closed. I do not own this house yet. Right. But I'm looking at the termites, and I call the termite guy, and the termite guy says, it'll cost $1,200 to fix this forever. There will never be termites in this house again for $1,200 now and this much a year to maintain the thing that we're
that's awesome.
And
so that's like $2,200 that you're gonna have to put into this. Which again, you still have potentially like another like 20 upside or so. Like
you have that much in upside, but you also have that much scare factor for other buyers.
To not want it.
To not want it. That's
fight you on it.
Yeah. People walk into the house and think, oh, there's termites. I'm out.
Right.
Obviously, there are times when you should be out because there's termites.
Right.
But this one, I kicked a hole in the wall.
Right.
Don't tell the realtor. But I kicked a hole in the wall right above where the termites was, and I looked inside it, and it wasn't bad. I had termites in the first property, and it was much worse, and it only cost me $1,200 to fix it.
Yeah.
And I did half of it myself. If you catch it and you know how to deal with it, the amount you'll save on the purchase price of the home is so much more than you're going to spend fixing the problem.
That's dope. I can't believe you got a house for $260 last year.
$300.
Okay.
It was listed at $260.
Okay, you paid offered 40 over.
Yeah,
right,
so I paid $300.
Okay, well I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it makes more sense. But I mean, there were places listed at $300 that I was offering $350 on that I was not getting.
Yeah, I mean our realtor was saying like most of the offers are like $100 over.
Yeah, that was
insane.
That was the hardest part, was finding one where my 40 over was the highest offer.
Right.
And that's it. It was just diligence and patience.
Right.
Staring at the thing, I did not do as good of work that week at work because I was on my phone all day looking for houses.
Right. You kind of need all that time.
Yeah, you just got to put in the time or find the time, make the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky that I work a job that takes 12 hours out of my day.
Right.
But also has 30 minutes of downtime every 2 hours.
Right.
So,
and you moved to this new house with your old roommate.
Yes.
So now there's still somebody renting out a room.
Yes, I was able to bring the roommate and keep that house hacking situation going on and maintain that.
And now you rent the old house to a family.
Yes.
Or the previous house. No, that house is not old. It's really nice.
It's almost 25 years newer than the one in Austin.
Yeah, and I still haven't seen it. I really want to check it out.
I know. Yeah, you need to come to the new house because it's
still 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
It's 3-bedroom, 2 baths. It's smaller by a pretty significant amount, but the yard is bigger.
It's got a bigger yard,
and it's in Austin.
Was pretty big. Yeah, and it's in Austin.
It's in Austin. That's the biggest thing. I need a lot of space for one guy
to everything.
Yeah, but you're closer to everything, so you don't.
25 minutes closer to everything.
Yeah, it's crazy. And groceries
and
little things like that.
Like
HEB. I got the MT supermarket. I got the meat market, the Michoacana, that one.
Yeah. Have you put in a lot of work into this new house?
I have. It was
in this year. You put in a lot of work. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's because it's been 9 months, so I did. The things that needed to happen before move-in were the things I was talking about.
Right.
The ugly stuff, the stuff where you go, oh Jesus, no.
Uh-huh. Are you fixing it for your taste, or are you fixing it to try to sell it?
Trying to rental
rent
grade.
it.
Yeah, rental grade upgrades. There's a couple things that are like a little above that I like. Like I just put in a new toilet. It's not the base model. It's a strong toilet.
Kinda need that, huh?
Yeah, it was like it cost twice as much as the base model. Man, it's a good toilet. It's not going anywhere.
All right, that's nice. Yeah, as long as you're not putting like a cushion or stuff.
No, not a cushion. Just it's.
I think that kind of phased out.
Yeah, that's too much.
I think people do that.
This one is advertised as being able to flush 40 golf balls at a time.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's on the advertisement?
That's on the box.
That means they tested that.
Yeah. Oh, there's a video.
Just them swirling
around in there. And it needed to happen because the old toilet was bad. It was straight. It was the one from the 80s. And it was,
Yeah, I'm not nearly as handy as you, but like the toilet, I guess, does it matter that much? Like the strength of the toilet itself? It doesn't have to do with like your pipes?
Well, eventually.
Okay.
But
if you keep dumping enough golf balls.
If you looked at my 80s toilet, and we're gonna get into a little toilet science here.
Okay. Sure.
The toilet works. The general house toilet has a tank on the back and the bowl, and then a J trap out.
Right.
The J trap is what allows the little pool at the bottom to stay there, and the tank holds more water. When you hit the flusher, all the water from the tank flows into the bowl, and that pressure causes the water to go through the J trap.
Right.
And that gets everything out.
Yeah. So is there like a jet or something that dumped to push that water through?
Exactly. The old one from the 80s had a small hole from the tank, so it had low water pressure coming in. It was kind of messed up in the bowl, so all the water came to the front, and so it came out slowly, so it filled up slowly. Instead of creating that pressure down, it just filled the bowl.
Right.
So you would have to wait until there was enough physical
for it to push down,
and then the suction would pull it all through sometimes. The new one has a wide mouth at the tank with an additional smaller mouth.
Yeah.
So there's two ports out of the tank. One goes around the top, and the other, the wider one, goes out of the bottom directly into the J-trap. So now the water is forcing downward and pulling from the bottom, sucking everything out of the toilet.
It's good toilet science.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it only cost $200.
What?
Versus $100 for the base model.
Okay.
So
I mean,
little things like that.
I guess that does kind of help the rental because you don't want them like getting the toilet clogged all the time.
It won't. It's not going to increase your rental value. So this was mostly a me purchase.
That sounds like that's like
it was mostly a me purchase, but
something for you.
You can justify it a little bit because
for your needs.
A stronger toilet's not going to clog. So that's one phone call a year I don't have to deal with.
Yeah.
Stronger toilet's going to last longer. So that's I'm not going to have to replace that for probably twice as long.
Yeah.
And, it's not going to actually increase the rental value. But if I've got some guy, some family, some group of college dudes, whoever's looking at this house, and they're between two places, and mine's got a stronger flusher. Yeah, they're dead identical, but mine flushes 40 golf balls.
I don't know. I don't think people like try to use the restroom when they're looking at a prop. I mean, for the most part, usually people try not to use the restroom when they're looking at a property.
But I can tell them.
But you can tell.
I can tell them all about it.
Up above the toilet, like try me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely mostly for me, but you can, you can find the value in these things, and that sort of mentality is what drives a lot of these successes for me. Is am I buying this for me or am I buying this for value? And if I'm buying it for me, where can I find the value? A lot of people were telling me in the first house, like, oh, you should add a window, put up a wall, move the counter, do all this craziness. I'm like, I don't need any of that. And that has no value. So you're trying to find the value in everything you're doing. And that could be rental value, that could be increased equity, that could be, it costs more to do this and I'm gonna do it for less. But keeping that mentality sort of baked into everything you do is what helps keep your lifestyle inflation down and helps make real estate worth it when you're doing it, is finding what things are worth more than people think.
I have just maybe two more questions. So, why are you doing this? Why is it what's motivating you to keep? So you're at two houses now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
26 years old. That's really dope. When you're younger than me, what's motivating you to keep going and buying the next property, or when you're making good income at your job?
It is the fastest way to increase your net worth, which is a hard thing to apply to your life when you're smaller in net worth. But once it gets large enough, there's a point where you realize that having all of this worth baked into you by owning assets allows you to get free money. You get better loans just by having a higher net worth. And for me, when I started buying the first house, I took several years to figure it all out. Buying that house kind of got me into more general personal finance. And I stumbled across an account that I was going to follow at first about someone trying to get their first $100,000 of net worth. They had gone to college, they had a 6-figure job, so they made way more money than I did. So I was like, oh, that'll be cool. And I lived in the first house for about 6 months, and I looked at my net worth just to see. I was like, oh man, I wonder how long it would take me to get my net worth that high. And at the time, I was a year younger than the person in this account. I was at $120,000 net worth. It's like, oh, the house is really propel that forward. Yeah. And it makes for a much more rapid and consistent net worth growth. Yeah. If my net worth is currently between, depending on where the market is, between $440,000 and $470,000. And that's 4 times as much as 3 years ago.
Right.
That's insane. I'm blown away by that still.
Yeah, no, that's really, really
it's crazy.
dope, man. Yeah.
But the only way I know to grow it by my own power is to buy another house. Because I could put more money in the market. But if it goes down, then the net worth goes down. And then
yeah. What's been the best way for you to raise money or to save money?
Avoiding lifestyle inflation. That's the biggest one. And a way to do that, I guess, is to keep your money hidden from yourself. I always, I get my paycheck or whatever, and I've got my checking account. And I know there's this much money in it. But I always, no matter how much money is in it, I push $1,000 into this account, $1,000 into the stocks, $1,000 into a mutual fund or a Roth IRA.
Do you have a lot of subscriptions?
No,
of stuff? Like,
I don't.
Do you have
No.
Do you have Netflix?
No.
You don't have Netflix? Okay. Do you have HBO or Spotify?
No. I know someone who has all of these things.
Okay.
I listen to ads on Spotify.
Okay.
Yeah. My subscription count is like a workout app for $12 a month.
Nice.
And a storage unit for $40 that I keep a lot of things that are operating separately, like gear for film that I rent out that I don't want in my house so that people don't know where it is. I keep that in a storage unit, but that's most of my subscriptions. Great. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and you're renting gear too.
Yes,
so
that was
pretty dope.
That was something that helped, as having that additional income. It didn't do as much because it is fluctuating.
So in a way, you have three sources of income, because you have the rentals, you have your freelance work, and you have the gear rental as well.
Yes, gear rental property, basic income, and then from my portfolio of stocks and bonds, there are dividends, and just the growth of that.
Yeah. Are you mostly buying like stocks for dividends, or like you're not buying individual stocks? You're buying like into portfolios.
I started buying
managed
individually because I didn't fully understand it. So I bought a lot of individual stocks that had decent dividends or solid growth. And since then, I've kind of pivoted to an automatically managed Roth IRA through a bank that I trust.
Right, but you're not pulling out of that. That's like for retirement.
Correct. Yeah, that goes away, and that's how you save the money.
Right.
Is you have that, so your spendable money is lower.
Right.
And you have a savings.
But you're saving.
Yeah. So as long as you're pushing money out of your spending account to somewhere you can't get to it, you're gonna start saving money.
Awesome. Cool. Do you have any last advice for anybody who's maybe looking to get their first home or their first rental property?
Start looking now. Start looking now, and start getting a loan. If you're listening to me say that and going, I can't afford it, it's free to start. It's free to start looking. It's free to start learning. It's free to get a loan, to get approved for a loan. All of the costs for those things are covered when you buy the house. So, and it takes longer than you think. Even the second house, it took me longer than I expected. It takes a long time. So if you can start those processes and understand them, it makes you more agile in the market and able to do what we talked about earlier and just jump on something and go. And I think that's the biggest thing, is you just have to start.
There's actually one more thing. You had said, and I know that we were ready to wrap up, but there's one more thing that has been on my head. You said that you're like, hey, I checked out your channel, like I want to come on. There's like a few things that I would have done differently, and I don't know even what that was in reference to. What were you talking about? There
was one thing specifically with the house. There's one thing specifically with the house, but I think we could do a whole nother hour on that.
Oh, okay. Oh man, it's a big thing.
I think so. I think it could be. I think it could be a great thing to dive into.
It? Maybe we'll table it.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that you liquefied all or most of your other assets to buy the house, and that was something that at surface level I take issue with. But that's why I think it's going to be long. I think there's definitely a lot more than I know that you can provide information. Then we'll have lots to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes off of what you said, that like you should just get into real estate like now, like as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And it's like that was the only way for me to do it now.
Yep.
So I was like, well, I'll save for retirement, as soon as I like spend this.
Yeah.
Which I know is like typically not the right way to go, but I knew that we needed, like you said, we need to live somewhere, we need to start spending somewhere. So I was like, let's get into this house thing now.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to talk more about that.
We'll talk about that some more another time.
On the next one.
Yeah, on the next one.
Yeah,
thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. Sweet. This was great.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks for tuning it in.